بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am very, very happy. I am pleased to be here. And I'm pleased also to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm even embarrassed because I know among the audience there are people who know more about the subject a lot more than I do. But I hope that this will not be a lecture in any way, but a conversation between us on one of the most important topics around the world, which is how do we get our young and talented people to revitalize our economy through entrepreneurship and the small and medium enterprises development. I've called this a vision and strategy of SME development, but it is actually just a fancy name because I wanted this to make me sound smart. But it is actually about keeping entrepreneurship simple. How do we go back to the basics and give you an overview of entrepreneurship in Oman? How did it start? Where is it going? What is Riyada? And more importantly, where do you fit within the entrepreneurship story of Oman? How can you benefit from the services that are available? And where are we heading with our SME strategy? So please forget about the vision and strategy part, but I hope it did make me sound smart, if you don't mind. So just a little bit of an introduction. What we are going to talk about today has to do with the instilling the entrepreneurship culture in Oman. One of the most important points that I've always stressed, that we are an entrepreneurial nation by nature. And one of the things that are very important for the public authority for SMEs development is to make sure that we do this through education. How do we make sure that we are not dealing with entrepreneurship as a new topic, but as a continuation of a great heritage of a nation that has been entrepreneurial for around 2,000 years. Entrepreneurship is about overcoming obstacles and challenges. And one thing that is in common between, for example, the UK and Oman is that they are both entrepreneurial nations who overcome the challenge of geography, the challenge of the desert, the challenge of mountains, the challenge of the rough oceans, requires that the people who live in those lands think about how do they overcome those challenges. And this is why Omanis are entrepreneurs by nature. And you will see through the programs that we have created, how are we trying to reconnect between our heritage and the future. My experience is a little bit mixed. When I graduated from college a few months ago, a few years ago, when I graduated from college in 2000, the same questions that led Hamad, and I thank the Oman Student Society very much for inviting me. I had the same questions that we have in our mind today. How can I contribute back when I go back home? What is it that I really want to do? Do I want to work in the government? There were not many opportunities to engage with the private sector, and entrepreneurship was not that buzzword that it is right now today. So I hope that you will see how things change since 2000 and 2017. And I've also wanted just to give you a little bit of information about what is Riyada. How many of you have heard about Riyada before? Can I just show of hands? Wow, it's good. At least 60% of the room have heard of Riyada. So we are the public authority for SMEs development. And one of the things that I was very lucky is that before traveling here, I told a lot of people that we work with in different organizations in the public and private sectors that the students in London invited me to speak to them about entrepreneurship. And they were very envious. So you have, I'm conveying to you the regards of all the organizations that are working together to develop SMEs in Oman. There are around 56 different organizations in Oman that are working with SMEs development. They range from youth groups to government offices to companies who have established entrepreneurship programs. And Riyada's job is to coordinate among all of them. So they convey to you their regards. They wish to be here, and they have conveyed to me also that they wanted you to know more about what they are doing so that When you graduate at any point of time, you can reach out to us through the London Student Society, and we'll get you in touch with the right organizations. One of the most important things in the vision and the philosophy was written in one of the books that His Majesty talked about his vision. He said that when he was 29 years old, just 4 years after after coming back to the country, he was observing the ocean in the far in the Kharif season. And if you remember the Kharif season in the far, the ocean is very rough, the Indian Ocean. And he was always wondering how come that Omanis over the centuries were able to tame the very rough seas. And he wondered how were Omanis able to build an empire even though they were a small nation in the Arabian Peninsula. And he said that it led him to think that if Omanis had that rich heritage that was able to conquer the oceans, we could bring back that entrepreneurial spirit. Our slogan, our motto, is not to make young people rich, for example, but it is to be inspiring. How do we inspire people the same way the seas and the oceans inspired His Majesty? How do we inspire success, inspire people to be to reconnect with our rich heritage and the rich past? This is just a point of definition. When we say small and medium enterprises in Oman, we mean micro, small, and medium. So micro businesses, which is around 70% of SMEs in Oman, are those who have up to 5 workers and less than 100,000 Riyal Omani in sales. If we're talking about small businesses, we're talking about those who have between 6 and 25 workers and between 100,000 up to 500,000 Riyal Omani in sales. What we are really looking forward to is how do we create innovative medium-sized enterprises, because medium-sized enterprises are the ones that employ more people and they add more value to the economy because they contribute more to the GDP. So they are the ones that employ between 26 and 99 people and between 500,000 Riyal Omani and up to 3 million Riyal Omani in sales. And what's important about this is how do we shift from the micro businesses and make sure that there is a smooth pipeline and transition between micro to small to medium size enterprises. Right now, that breakdown is between 70% that are micro businesses, and we have about 15 to 20% that are small businesses, and the rest, which are sometimes less than 10%, medium-sized enterprises. And if we're talking about what is it that our end result, so of course the philosophy and the vision is how do we become successful guardians of that entrepreneurial spirit? How do we rekindle the fire of the Omani entrepreneurial heritage? That in the ground translate into how do we take on a very serious challenge. The serious challenge that we have is increasing job opportunities for Omanis through SMEs and also increasing the contribution to the GDP through those SMEs. And this is how SMEs are counted. And if you can see here, the current SMEs contribution, if you can guess, we are a 4-year-old organization. We were established by royal decree in 2013, and we will see that timeline that talks about this. If we're talking about what is it, the end result that we want to reach within 10 years, we're talking about a contribution to job creation of around 23% currently. And this is according to a study by the Central Bank of Oman in 2014. Whereas if you see the global average is about 60% where SMEs contribute to job creation, which means out of the workforce in Oman, we have only SMEs employ 23% only. So our challenge, what really keeps us jumping out of bed in the morning is how do we really bring that percentage to healthy standards. And if you see also out of the workforce that is working in SMEs, we have 95% who are non-Omanis and 5% are Omanis. And this is very healthy if you're talking about a diversified cosmopolitan workforce, but it will be very healthy also to reach international standards, which are around 45% of Omanis that should be working for that 23% of SMEs that are providing jobs to Omanis. So this is our challenge, and challenges are what keeps you alive, and they make you work harder to make sure that they. But even though we have started our journey into modern concepts of entrepreneurship soon, we are sure that we can overcome this, inshallah, with the coordination between all those 56 organizations. This is the timeline over the years. So we were created by Royal Decree 36 in 2013, and since then we have been tracking two things: the direct jobs that we are creating and the indirect jobs, which are usually counted 3 times the direct jobs that are created. Since we started as a public authority for SMEs development, we have been focusing on programs that are mentioned in the Royal Decree and that correspond to what type of assistance can we provide to SMEs. One thing that is very important, and especially for young people, is to know what do they really want. What is it that you want out of entrepreneurship? What is it that you want to accomplish from your career? Do you want to leave a legacy as an entrepreneur? Are you satisfied with just having a government job, for example? If you are more able and more willing to do that, that's absolutely fine. But what is it that you want? What type of entrepreneurship and what type of assistance that you need to, that you want from the government? That is a very important question. So to do that, we have devised different programs according to what we think the trends of entrepreneurships are. And then we built it around the aspirations of young people. You start usually with mentorship program. How do you make sure that people have the right guidance to become successful and sustainable entrepreneurs? We want also to create role models. How do you make sure that we have people who, our young people, young students want to grow up to be like in the future? We have partnered with organizations that provide funding and provide guidance, provide training, such as Shell. We've created, we have encouraged individuals to set up their own angel investment networks, and we have worked on programs that actually work on the ground to make things happen, such as the National Enhancing Economic Diversification programs. I have a problem with very long acronyms. I am sure if someone here from Tanfid, they would be upset. But I think it is the National Program for Enhancing Economic Diversification. Don't worry, that's not one of the questions, but it should be. But these are just examples of how we are trying to translate the vision that we have into real programs. There are 4 types of assistance that we encourage young people to seek out of entrepreneurship, and they are very, very important for us. Do you need assistance with finding the right entrepreneurial idea? What does the market need? Have you thought about your heritage? Is there something that is that comes naturally to you, or you are better able to perform that the market needs? We find a lot of people that depend, when they are coming up with their entrepreneurial ideas, of what is already in the market. We have a tendency to copy other entrepreneurial ideas, and this is an issue. And this is why we have devised 4 types of programs according to the feedback that we got from people. So the first thing is, how do we assist people in giving them access to entrepreneurial ideas that the market really needs? Not only the local Omani market, but how about the GCC market? We have 2 mega events that are coming up in the region. We have Expo Dubai, for example, and we have Qatar World Cup 2022. How do we encourage young people to start thinking of entrepreneurial ideas that the wider market also needs? And the second thing and the third thing are related. Their growth and finance. After making sure people have the right idea, we're also working with people in general with entrepreneurial tendencies to make sure they have the right type of access to funding. There are around 11 financing and microfinancing facilities that are available in Oman, and a part of what we do is making sure that people know what is the difference between startup funding? What is the difference between growth funding? What is pre-seed finance? What is seed finance? What is growth finance? What is equity finance? We encourage people before they come to us through the entrepreneurial ideas phase to encourage them to know exactly what do they need. What is it that I already have, and what is it that I need other people's help with? And we link people to the type of and the access to entrepreneurship that they actually need. And then after providing people with the right idea, giving them the access to the right type of finance, what about if they want to grow? They're already registered, they have their idea, but they want to grow a little bit. So we have partners that they can work with, they can increase, they can open other offices, they can hire more people, and we call this the access to growth. How do we make sure people have the right ideas of how to grow? One of the also most important things for the economy of the country is giving people access to markets. We want people to think outside the box. Nations are great by the ability of their people to think out of their boundaries. We want people to start thinking about our wider heritage, the Arabian Peninsula, Asia, why not Europe, East Africa, how about South Asia, how about Latin America? So we really think that there is a possibility of facilitating access for people who want to be entrepreneurs to international market. And you will see examples of programs that do just that. These are the hierarchy of the accesses. If you are just starting out, for example, and you just have the idea, then you will be at the entrepreneurial idea stage. If you have an idea but you need support, you need training, then that will be the access to, you will ask us for what is out there that can help me grow. If you need extra financing, then the question that you need to be asking us and asking yourself, what financing do I already have, and what financing do I already need? Should I go to a government fund such as a Rafid fund, or should I go to an equity financing such as Oman Investment Fund, for example? And after that, what is out there in terms of the SMEs ecosystem? Who else is out there that Riyada is coordinating with that can help me in growing as an entrepreneur? This is an example of the access to entrepreneurial ideas. We have partnered for Shell, for example, and this is something that's available to all of you. If you, for example, want an idea, how do we, you want to know the future trends of entrepreneurship, we have the Center of Intilaqa that is actually hosted in Riyadh, and it's now called Intilaqa at Riyadh, that provides you with the global trends in entrepreneurship. And for example, this is an example of a signing between one of our registered SMEs or Riyada card holders in a renewable energy project just this month. And that is the president of Shell Oman. So this is an example of how we try to make the entrepreneurial ideas accessible to people who are interested. And another example that we have that is related to access to finance, we're working with all the 11 microfinancing organizations, and how do we make different types of financing available. And we also classify them as per your needs. If you're just starting out, that would be a pre-seed funding. And pre-seed funding will not require, for example, that you have to have a commercial registration. And this includes competitions. For example, we have up to 7 different types of competitions that provide people with funding up to 10,000 Riyal Omani. So in terms of access to finance, the right question to us will be, what stage is my idea in? Do I need pre-seed funding? Do I need seed funding? Do I need growth finance? Do I need equity finance? And this is something that we are facilitating. And an example of this is that we are now working with Oman Development Bank in redesigning its strategy in a way that corresponds with the current technological trends in in not only Oman but in the region. And Oman Development Bank is the largest microfinancing institutions in Oman. With regards to access to growth, The idea is how do we make a link and a pipeline for people from the idea stage all the way to the growth stage. And we worked with let me try this again, the National Program on Enhancing Economic Diversification, TNFEED, on how do we make sure that there is a very healthy pipeline. We've worked on a program that is called The Catalyst, sponsored with CC Energy Development, an oil and gas company in Oman, on how do we take job seekers. And the initiative has 5 phases. So phase 1 is engaging all stakeholders. What kind of entrepreneurs do you want to see in the future? The second phase is screening and filtration. Is everybody destined to be an entrepreneur? How do we screen and filter people with the right entrepreneurial traits and characteristics? So we do then screening and filtration, and we're doing this with Celatic, a Qatar-based organization that is specialized in job creation. And phase 3 is we prepare a list of procurement opportunities, tendering opportunities, and contracting opportunities, and we make them available for entrepreneurs who have the right entrepreneurial traits and characteristics. And the last 2 phases are matchmaking and evaluation. So we have a program that does not only give you the idea or make ideas available to you, or have you, instead of making financing available to you, we finance you through projects, contracts, and tendering opportunities with the help of companies that are working in the sectors that are related to the 9th 5-year plan. And this is why the program was supported by TNFEED, because it complements the country's national economic plans. And the last type, which is the access to markets, we're working now with 2 very specific projects, Dubai Expo 2020 and Qatar World Cup 2022. How do we make sure that there are SMEs, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, people with ideas like you, think from now that by 2020, do you have something that the world wants? In Expo Dubai, for example, we are expecting 25 million visitors, an average of around 150,000 visitors per day for 6 months. And we need to have a larger pie of that market. You can imagine the opportunities that 25 million visitors have for a business. So we're working with the Expo Dubai very closely. They were just visiting Oman 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to visit them in about 2 weeks' time. How do we make sure that Omanis feature prominently in Expo Dubai? And the same thing in Qatar 2022. We're starting to collaborate with them in a program that is called Challenge 2022. And there are 4 small businesses in Oman that won funding to develop ideas that sustainable and how to make the stadium sustainable, for example, in 2022. And this is one of the opportunities that are available. If you have an idea that you think it's not only good for the Omani market but for the global buyers, then you would ask us what markets opportunities that are available also. These are other examples. We have the Intilaqa at Riyada that helps you with entrepreneurial ideas. If you are interested in branding and communications, we have a branding academy concept that we are working on with the Startup Oman. One of the biggest supporters of entrepreneurship in Oman is BP. And I've met with them here, and they're conveying their regards to they have great collaboration with the Anglo Omani Society and also with students here in the UK. We are working with them on a YouTube show in collaboration also with Oman TV and Oman TV YouTube channel that will hopefully be aired in Ramadan. And the idea of the show that it is created by entrepreneurs themselves to show other entrepreneurs what are the lessons that they have learned through their journey. And it will be an interactive show that we will ask people if they like or support the business that is featured in each of the 10 to 15 episodes to support them through any resources that they have available. So this is one of the great ideas we're hopefully going to launch this summer. And there is a program with distinguished women entrepreneurs that is called Mulhimat. And this is just some examples of how we are trying to revitalize entrepreneurship, but not by the government doing everything. How do we make sure that we are guardians also of a nurturing ecosystem of entrepreneurship that is led by entrepreneurs themselves in collaboration with the private sector? Other examples for access to growth, we're working on a financial and marketing training program with PDO, in addition to programs that we have with them on renewable energy. One of our flagship programs is with PwC, SME Fund and Bank Muscat, but it was also started with Princess Trust, which is now Princess Trust and Princess Trust International, and I was just visiting them yesterday. They've helped us set up the basics of how do you make a connection between the leading Omani businessmen and entrepreneurs. So we have a group of around 90 CEOs and general managers in Oman who volunteer their time each month to mentor up to 4 entrepreneurs. Our Minister of Commerce and Industry, Chairman of the Public Authority for SMEs Development, has been a mentor since the program started for 4 years. And we choose, the mentors and the mentees just according to their background and their preferences as well. And we're also working on enhancing the competitiveness of SMEs. How do we make sure that when they start, they're not only thinking of the local market, but they're thinking of a competitive global market as well? And we're working on this with the Ministry of Oil and Gas. We have an in-country value team that is working also with the Ministry of Oil and Gas. How do we make sure that the major companies or major operators are allocating not less than 10% of tenders and contracts to small and medium enterprises? And with regards to access to finance and resources, we have a program that is one of the most exciting programs that I was part of creating ever, which is called Upgrade. And I've encouraged all of you to get to know it. The website is upgrade.om. And this is the first time these 5 organizations are collaborating with each other. The Information Technology Authority, Ibtikar, which is the Sharika Al-Omaniya Al-Ibtikar under SGRF. And we're also working with Omantel on this project. And the idea is, how do we transform ICT-related projects into successful startups? We've surveyed the markets and we've found that every year there are around 300 projects in Oman that are related to information and communication technology. What happens to students' graduation projects after graduation? If I may ask.
They're shelved.
Yes, they're mostly shelved. You're absolutely right. So this is an idea of using this wealth of knowledge that students have and turn it into successful startups. And after surveying the market, Omantel found that there are 4 main areas that we are going to support in the first version of Upgrade. The area of e-government services. We're also looking at smart cities. How do we make our cities more smart? And maybe you followed the news last week that the Research Council is working with the Muscat municipality in turning Matrah into a smart city in the future. So we have smart cities, we have e-government services, we have also cyber security as one of the areas that Upgrade is looking at. Please feel free to check the website, and if you know any students in ICT who wish to turn their ideas into reality, please get in touch. We're also working on creating role models. We have up to 21 successful entrepreneurs who have won what we call the Riyada Entrepreneurship Award. And it's an award that is not given only by Riyada, but the whole ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Oman. And we have an international and national judging panel that chooses those role models. I'm also very proud we're in daily communications with the National Youth Commission. The National Youth Commission did a survey shortly after they were established, and they found that 67% of youth were interested in economic empowerment programs. And based on this great interest, they have devised programs with us on how do we make sure that youth have the access to the entrepreneurial ideas that the country need. And I was a guest with them, and I'm a panelist on their economic empowerment programs. We've also have our own incubator that provides spaces for people who wish to have a space, and people who are thinking of co-working spaces as well. And we have specialized renewable energy projects in addition to projects that are related to the environment, such as Haya Water. We're using some of their lands and spaces for experimental agriculture businesses. And this is how we are trying to devise some programs that can save resources and finance for small and medium businesses. This is how we are trying to link you to global markets. We're working with the World Trade Organization. They have an arm that is called the International Trade Center. And with the International Trade Center, we are working with them. How do we not only follow the buzz of having only technology-driven entrepreneurship? We want to rediscover the fortunes that we already have. Food and water security. What is it that we have in our land that we can redesign and reintroduce to the world? So we're working with them on how do we look differently at traditional projects. Something as simple as frankincense, dates projects. So we're working with them on a date and frankincense export project that will start, inshallah, this year. And I've already mentioned that we're working with the Dubai Expo and Qatar World Cup 2022, hoping that we are going to give people who are aspiring entrepreneurs a challenge that they wish to overcome, and to revitalize that old heritage that we have of crossing the seas and conquering international markets in the nicest way possible. These are the 5 pillars that guide our work. We are the regulator of the SMEs market, which means we regulate the SMEs decisions. There are 41 decisions that are designed and were issued to make SMEs' life easier. They were issued between 2013 and 2015, and our job is to make sure that decisions related to financing are happening. The decisions that are related to allocating lands to SMEs are happening as well. So this is our regulatory part. We also coordinate between all the entities that are related to those programs that we have just mentioned, or providing those 4 types of accesses to SMEs. We are in charge of keeping the public informed of what is the progress of implementing those decisions. And more importantly, and one that is really close to my work, is to cultivate. How do we make sure that we have the right entrepreneurship culture? We don't want a profit-driven generation. We want a generation that is aware of the vision of the country, that is also connected to its values, that is connected to its heritage, and that is, if we focus on a generation that is profit-driven, we will have people who want to start companies without thinking about important things to the economy, such as job creation, contribution to the GDP. And this is why it's very important that we work on a culture where people are not driven only by profit, but also by the sustainability and by the right values as well. And we also have a very tangible support that we give to SMEs. We provide space for SMEs that meet our criteria, or the ecosystem's criteria, and we provide land for if you are in the manufacturing sector, for example. This is an example of things that the ecosystem is creating, not necessarily by Riyada. And this is the National Youth Commission. I don't know if anyone recognizes the gentleman in the picture, if I may ask.
Dr. Rashid.
Yes, that's Dr. Rashid, the chairman of the National Youth Commission. And this is Oman's first angel investment network. This is a pre-seed funding for people with great ideas and that are not established businesses yet. And when we were designing this program, we wanted to reconnect it to the Omani heritage. So we asked ourselves, where is the market or the place where people can bring their valuable products and services and offer it to other people? And this is why we call it what they call in the entrepreneurship jargon, they call it the demo day or demonstration day. We call it Al Habta, and Al Habta is the traditional place where people put their ideas, their products, and their services so other people can invest in them, put very simply. But in sophisticated terms, this is Oman's first angel investment network that works with pre-seed funding that turns ideas into reality.
Why did they call it angel?
Yes, this is a very good question. I think it will be maybe more controversial if we call it devil network. But the idea of angel investment network is that you are not expecting return. You are angel investors. The difference between angel investors and normal investors, that investors are looking for what they call the exit. So there's a set exit after either 2 or 3 years, and you're expecting 20%, around 20% profit from your initial investment. If this condition is not there in the investment, then it is called angel investment, and this is why it's.
So all the SMEs in Oman are regulated by Riyada?
SMEs in Oman, yes.
Because you mentioned 1,000 plus the total number of SMEs in Oman.
Yes.
But I think there are more than that.
Yes, and it would be great. Maybe if we can take questions now, or if you want, we can hold it at the end. But I prefer it would be good if I'm interrupted, because I could be keeping you here forever. And this is a very important question. So one thing that we have, and we always encourage all other organizations to do, controlling any sector will be very difficult. And it's not, it would not be right for making that sector prosper. So we chose not to be the controller of the SME sector, but the body that provides the nurturing environment and the incentives for it. There are around 163,000 SMEs that could meet the definition of under 100 workers and up to 3 million Riyal Omani in sales. Out of those voluntarily registered with us, we have around 25,000 SMEs that are registered with us. We are officially the body that classifies what is, if an enterprise is an SME or not. If it is entitled to those benefits and the access that we have, you need to be registered with us. And those who are privileged, the ones that are owned by Omanis, operated by Omanis, registered with Public Authority for Manpower Registration, registered with the Public Authority for Social Insurance, they are entitled to have what is called the Riyada card. And there we have around 10,000. So you can imagine, we are a team of around 100 people, and we are trying to make the life of all those SMEs as easy as possible, and it keeps us very, very busy. And I'm truly very, very proud of the 100 people team that we have, whether in the headquarters in Muscat, we have also branches in Al Batina, in Sharqiya, in Dhufar, and those 163 enterprises in general keep us very busy, and our Riyada card holders as well.
So do you maintain a database?
Yes.
Okay, and since when and how long?
Since 2013, since we were established by the Royal Decree 36/2013 in May 30 of 2013.
And is there any coordination with the Gulf countries? Because the authority of SMEs is available in all states of the Gulf.
Yes.
So is there any connections and collaboration activities?
Yes, there is. We have joint workshops that are usually held either in Kuwait or in Saudi Arabia. But so far there isn't one network that connects all the authorities together. This is one thing that we try to do, highlight success stories as much as we can through our social media, and I would encourage you to follow that. We try to inspire success not only internally, This is one thing that we do internally as well. We try to scale up SMEs in coordination with our organizations that are already distinguished in their fields. This is a program that we had with Takatuf. Have you heard of Takatuf before? People other than Hamad?
Sounds Islamic.
It's the human resources arm of Oman Oil Company. And they have a program that's working with the SMEs leader. How do they transition, for example, from small enterprises into large enterprises? Another successful story is that we had a traditional small, or actually a micro business, a honey maker, who was struggling around 1 year and a half. And after diagnosing his enterprise, we were able to prescribe for him what kind of programs does he need. And we've enlisted him, for example, in local and regional exhibitions. And just in January, he had his first shipment to California in the US. And he's one of the SMEs that we are hoping that by the end of this year, he will transition from not only to micro to small, hopefully to medium-sized enterprise. And his name is Hamoud Al Amri. He's very active on Twitter if you want to find him. It's called Dukkan Al Asal. And this is him, and that is the Minister of Diwan of Royal Court. And I remember this moment because he was telling him about all the challenges that he was facing at that time. And I was very proud when I saw that, in our records it shows that he started exporting to the US and other countries. This is also just a snapshot of the not only Riyada in charge of making entrepreneurship successful. This is a group of people representing the overall ecosystem, and we were in the signing of our Catalyst program. And it included people from all the other organizations that we work with. So we are your gateway to identify what is the right organizations that can help you as well. We hope that we will create impact over the time, either direct or indirect. And we're hoping that we will present this to the public in a quantitative way. What opportunities is the ecosystem creating directly, and what opportunities are we creating indirectly? This is another slide, and if you can guess, this slide was also designed to make us look very intelligent and very smart. But I was hoping that no one would ask me about the formula that is there, because I just saw it. This is also something that we are very proud of. These are two different enterprises that were struggling around 2 years ago, and we were able to direct them to the right type of access and the right type of organization that helps them. Ali Rashdi has a mobile maintenance unit. He was a successful officer in the Royal Air Force of Oman, and because he's good in maintenance, he got a van, and he called a couple of other friends, and they resigned from the force, and they started answering calls for people at home. So they're like doctors, but for maintenance, all around Muscat. And now I think they own around between 9 and 13 different vehicles. And it's called Muamala. And they're also available on social media if you're interested in working with them. And he also transitioned from being a micro business to being a small business as well. I'm hoping that by the end of the year, they will transition to being a medium-sized enterprise as well. The one on the left is, they're called Oliban. The same thing, around 2 years ago, I remember they were calling us, how do they liquidate and close their business? And their main issue, for example, was access to finance. They had the entrepreneurial ideas. Both of them are medical doctors. And with the right type of intervention, they were able to secure an equity financing that is over 1.5 million riyal in 2016 with the help of Oman Investment Fund. And they are one of the most successful companies in the area of health and wellness, not only in Oman but in the Gulf region, and they're called Oliban as well. And they are the providers of your gifts today. I think we are reaching the end of the Thank you very much for your time. But
anyone has a question first? Moya?
You mentioned how you supported the Khalid Al to the transition from being a local business to going internationally. The thing is, the fear to go for it like internationally is not knowing the laws of like the countries you're going for, or not knowing the regulations of how things work there. So do you have any cooperation with like authorities in different countries that can make this process easier, or educate the business owners on the regulations and laws of the other countries?
That's a fantastic question, and we're very lucky in Oman because we have the right type of organizations, and we depend on people knowing exactly what do they want, or at least asking the right questions. So for example, if people did not come to us and seek our help and ask us questions, we would never be able to help them. One difficulty and one challenge that we have sometimes is that people assume that there are no services that are available to SMEs. One thing that was helpful in Hamoud's case is that he asked. And he asked exactly your question. He wanted to export, and he did not know what are the rules of regulations of Oman Post. And I remember because I took that call myself. And I transferred it to our marketing department. And the way we fix that is by two things. We have a program with IFRA. I will not even try to IFRA, the acronym of IFRA. It is the Public Authority for Export Promotion and for Investment Promotion and Export Development, what is called PAPED or OCPED. So IFRA has offices in different countries, and they do exactly this. They help enterprises, medium, small, micro, large, in knowing what are the rules of exporting. We have also the export guarantee agency that tells you what kind of documents that you need, what kind of clearances that you need, what kind of guarantees you need to export. So what we do is first we make sure that you have the right entrepreneurial setup for a growth enterprise, and then we work with IFRA in making sure that their agents in the different countries know and they're able to help, and the export credit guarantee if there is a credit guarantee that is needed. But thanks, that's an excellent question.
Okay, I might have a question.
Sure.
One of the things that has been discussed on Twitter regularly in the last month is Invest Easy, or استثمر بسهولة, and how easy it is to invest. How does Riyada differ from Invest Easy in terms of the easiness of starting a startup?
Yes, and I think this is also, I could have paid you money to ask me that question. It's very important to understand that in any country, the law that regulates business is called the commercial law. And under that commercial law, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is the body responsible for the registration of enterprises. And by the virtue of that commercial law, this means that no other organization is in charge of registering businesses. So back to your question, there's only one body that is responsible for registering commercial organization in Oman, and that's the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Riyada, we are in charge of the SMEs that are, that are already registered, but we are not a registration portal such as Invest Easy, which means that Ministry of Commerce and Industry is the body that has to issue the CR, or the commercial registration. Between Invest Easy and Riyada, there is a very important point, the balance. And this is something that is very important for governments all over the world. How do you balance between ease of doing business and ensuring the quality of enterprises? And this is a very, very difficult balance, because all over the world, the regulations of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, they judge you and they rank you and they rate you according to how easy is it for people to start their enterprises. However, for organizations like us, for the ecosystem in general, we are also concerned of those enterprises that are getting registered. What are they actually doing? If they are registering an environment, are people who are registering capable of running an environmental organization? If it's in the chemical manufacturing industry, we want to make sure that they have the right qualifications, for example. So there is one of the jobs of the government is to facilitate the ease of doing business, but sometimes we need to explain to the public that there are necessary processes and procedures to make sure that the enterprises that are registering, they can register within few minutes, but the government has to know, is it safe for the public? Does the economy need it? Do we need 100,000 new SMEs that provide karak tea, for example, that sprung over the past few years? So this is the balance that we are trying to strike through Invest Easy. So Invest Easy has been very significant. In the World Bank ranking, we have moved to one of the top countries in the ease of starting a business. But to me, what is more important than make it easy for people to start, we want people to run sustainable businesses. So this is the difference. The Invest Easy, what they're trying to do, we are trying to make sure that it is easy for someone to start a business. The complaints that you sometimes hear from people that it is difficult to complete some of the rules and regulations, these are very, very necessary to make sure that the products and the services you are offering meet health and safety and quality standards. Sorry, that was a long answer. I hope it was okay.
First of all, I think you're never short of exciting your audience. So I don't think anybody slept on through. But I'm aware I've given my back, so I don't know. But I could be assured that that's not the case. A couple of things, maybe just from what you finished with, and that's a comment. Unfortunately, maybe that's an area only where you stated that we're actually progressing. But in most of the global indicators, actually we are declining. And I don't want to list them because they're not helping. But I hope there's a turnaround around those indicators and we could see a better outcome. But unfortunately, in the last few years, we've seen them going down instead of going up.
Yes.
So that's more of a comment
Yes.
without being specific. The other thing, which is, I think, from the Gulf area, or basically from the emerging economies like Oman, one of the challenge always is the hidden entrepreneurship, or tijara mustatira.
Yes.
And I think all the studies and indicators show Oman is among the Gulf states, they are among the biggest with such, and I think that's for any entrepreneurship sort of program is going to be a challenge. From personal experience being in the industry, and the government brought a lot of programs historically, like the industrialization program, the agriculture program, and other programs, which technically sound excellent, but practically they were a major failure in their own way because of these processes of hidden system, where unfortunately end up to be a disaster for a lot of entrepreneurs who actually they're not entrepreneurs. And that's related to the risk element. I think I could relate that, and maybe that could be the question to be addressed, is to distill the challenge within the invest in Oman and the commercial law, which is unfortunately end up that people having a hidden industry instead of a direct. So an expat cannot invest in Oman unless you're an American, because the FDA might allow you to do so.
Yes.
For the rest of the globe, you need to have a certain. So people, they found the easy exit is get an Omani window dressing, and then you do whatever you do. If it succeed, you cash out, and that's why you see the billions of remittance every year from Oman. They are massive. So the industry is good. The country is growing 5+%, and the money goes out, doesn't stay in the country. And that end up with such challenge because the law, the commercial law and other law actually still challenge that sort of ease of investment. So this expat, instead of himself setting up partnership, knowledge transfer, entrepreneurial learning, all this sort of good stuff, you're actually giving him a different exit by taking him the benefit and leaving the risk to the Omanis. And we know in the court cases how many Omanis end up locked up because of such failure, because of this hidden. I hope Riyada or the commercial law, other laws, they're going to address this.
Yes.
to minimize these practices, because it's very important for the growth of the SMEs. That one thing, and I'll leave you. And then the second one is more of entrepreneurship learning.
Yeah.
We know from my experience again and the other industry being around, there's not enough of programs, but the effectiveness of those programs, they're very bad. And a lot of people, they either inject the money or, for example, you flag some of those successful programs like Interlock and all that, and you have a personal experience in some of them. But I think if I go back and measure the success of such program, I would challenge that success. From a BR, they've been successful. From businesses to grow to be from a micro to, they've been a failure, because I hardly seen those programs being successful to see, because we know it from going back 15 years when they introduced up to now. I could hardly see any businesses were incubated. The same thing goes with SaaS, the same thing goes with other things where people being very much incubated, they be supported financially, you have no issue. But actually they don't survive, and I think statistically saying in Oman, they almost 2/3 fail and they bankrupt eventually because of such. So I don't know how you're going to address this entrepreneurship learning within, I know you mentioned your first slide was education.
Yes.
But I still do not foresee the education starting from the infancy phase, building that capacity within the education system, within the whole knowledge transfer element.
Yeah.
And I'm still, until today, although you said ICVs, Interlaqa at Riyada and all that, but there's still program running in their own ways. And the success of those integration, I would say, is still a challenge. I know, I'm sorry, I got a long statement
I foresaw from the very beginning that there are people in the audience who know a lot more than me, and I'm really glad that Mr. Amr is here with us. And you mentioned 3 points that I think are very valid, and I agree with you mostly. I mean, for example, with regards to the indicators, and I've attended, and I'm aware of a session that looked at Oman, and you're familiar with the Global Competitiveness Report. That ranks countries in according to how competitive they are. And recognize there are many reports where Oman is doing very well, and there are indicators that we need to do better. To me, indicators are great, but I am a very, very big supporter of making sure that we know who we are and what we are doing, and we rate ourselves. For example, if we are talking about GDP and GNP indicators, GDP and GNP are indicators that were developed in 1945 as a response to World War II, and in accordance with the US economy, for example. Why do we have to bind ourselves around the world with indicators that were created for other circumstances? This same world that is using the indicators that we sometimes make us worry are changing. A lot of the countries now are looking at other indicators such as the social progress imperative. Yes, and happiness. Is it important to measure the wealth of a nation, or is it also important to measure the wealth, the wellness, the education, the comfort of people, the access to education, the access to health? So I would not be very worried about meeting and exceeding indicators as it can be a measure or a process, but it cannot be our end goal. ما ممكن إن هي تكون غايتنا في الحياة that we only meet international indicators that were created for other circumstances. I am a very big fan of studying what is it that we really want as a nation, meeting our indicators, and making sure that our people are inspired and are pursuing life, property, happiness, wellness in a fashion that is appropriate. And I am satisfied with the progress that we are making in the major indicators, for example. There are things that we definitely could do much better, But for the past years, and I'm aware of the Global Competitiveness Report, one of the areas, for example, is education. We really need to do much better in the indicators that are related to education. But will I be very worried that I am not meeting the same indicators that are applied in New Zealand and in the US or in the UK even? With all due respect, international indicators are great, but they should not dedicate what is our end result and what is our goal from developing our own country. The second point that you mentioned is also very valid, about the hidden trade, and it's a challenge. And like you saw, 95% of jobs are created, and the SMEs are for expats. It's very important for an economy to be healthy, to be both for nationals and non-nationals as well, and is a part of Oman's story as a nation that is seafaring and has a very long coast, for us to recognize how cosmopolitan and how diverse we are. Having said this, we to combat this very serious challenge, organizations like Riyada were created. So, for example, we make sure that businesses are monitored, that they are registered with the Public Authority for Social Insurance, and we track how many people and how many Omanis are paid their social insurance. We only registered that are owned by Omanis and operated by Omanis. We only registered and give access to our services to businesses that are registered with the Public Authority for Manpower Registration. And through the Manpower Registration registry, we can track whether the person has any other source of income. And it's a very strict measure. The reason why this is not seen so far is because these measures have only been applied for the past 3 years and a half, since we were established in mid-2013. And for any change, there is always resistance. And because of a resistance of change, you will see the fruits of making sure that businesses are operated and run by nationals in a way that benefits both our diversified and cosmopolitan community, but in a very healthy way for the economy. So far, success has been very elusive. But this is because if you are attempting something that is very significant, success is never easy. And we are thinking that we will not see the beneficial results of our measures to combat hidden trade before we complete 10 years since our establishment.
Are you addressing, sorry?
We are in our 4th year.
Are you addressing the cause of such process? Because not necessarily it's whatever you stated.
Yes.
It could be the regulations still need to be amended.
It's not only the regulations.
So the other aspect.
It's the culture and values. Are we people who want to reconnect with our heritage and defending ourselves and overcoming challenges? Do we still have the innovation and creativity and the transfer of knowledge, interest? This is something that over the past 4 decades has been waning for different economic and social factors. Entrepreneurship means not the profit-making part, but making sure that there is an entrepreneurial spirit of overcoming challenges and taking risks. So the lack of success in combating hidden trade is not related to the regulations only, but it is related to the most difficult thing to change in people, their mindset. How do we make sure that that Omanis are a risk-taking nation? So far, this is I remember in 2014, there was a study that showed that 86% of young people still preferred government jobs. But this was in 2014. But in 2016, that was done again, and it came up down to around 58%. In a neighboring country, that is up to 94% of people who prefer to take government jobs and who would be supportive of hidden trade. So between 86% in 2014 and 58%, I would say that it's not perfect, but it's progress, it's improvement. And the third point that you mentioned very quickly.
Entrepreneurial learning. You said
Yes.
there's mentorship, but how that is percolating
Yes.
into the whole education system.
Yes, so far it is spread, but it is not effective. Entrepreneurship education in Oman is not effective yet. We have it's embedded in the curriculum in schools. It's embedded in universities, but we are not seeing the benefits of entrepreneurship education yet, because it was only we only started to apply it nationally since 2015, the end of 2015. But according to our monitoring, the way entrepreneurship is taught is very academic. It's very theoretical. Thank God we have programs such as Injaz Oman, if you've heard about them, that give you a hands-on experience, such as Young Enterprise here in the UK. And they have worked with 10,000 students since their establishment, but 10,000 out of more than 500,000 students in schools. I totally agree with you. The entrepreneurship education in Oman is not effective yet, but we're getting there, inshallah.
Okay, I think we had one question there.
Yes, you mentioned the rating, and I believe yes, that the rating somehow can be unjust or unfair. But according to international ratings, we are rated B minus. Comparatively with the rest of the Gulf, Saudi Arabia has a AAA rating, something similar to America, and United Arab Emirates has a AAA. The other aspect is we have a budget deficit running, and it would be running in the near future. The third thing, we have a very unstable political economy of the Middle East. So with this in mind, why would someone invest in Oman?
I think this is exactly why you should invest in Oman. The higher the risks, the higher the rewards. If you look at Oman history, what wins is the geography, and what wins is history. You have to stick to something that is not going to change, that is not volatile. Our strategic location will never change. We are destined to be a top logistical hub of the world, no matter what happens. So the more challenges that are caused by international economic conditions that we don't control, I think the better it is for people to start investing in Oman, because even though the risks may look higher, the rewards will be even higher. Oman is a very politically stable country. We are one of the few countries in the region that has not seen conflict since 1975. In terms of the ratings that are related to the change in oil prices and the budget deficit, this is a temporary global volatility that is seen in the oil and markets because of political reasons related to OPEC, to major oil exporters. I'm trying to avoid to say the names of the countries. And this is a temporary situation that was created by countries in the region, and Oman has always taking a very strong stance that you do not respond to temporary situations. You only respond to long-term visions. We have seen this in 1986. There was a global oil price decline that has also affected Oman. But if we keep changing our policies, responding to ratings, responding to the whims of countries in the region, we will never be able to follow our long-term vision. And it will work at the end. So for example, if we kept changing our policies, what will happen is that the ratings will go even further. One of the most important things that could destroy countries is the lack of predictability. Our policy is going to change. Our economic policies are going to change. Is the political regime going to change? Are we going to follow what other countries, when they change their oil price policies, for example? That would be a killer for our strategic vision. because this means that people will not be able to predict what Oman does. Right now, I would say Oman is a very predictable country. People and investors know that no matter what happens in the region, the policy with Oman will be according to the sets that it has been following since 1970. And I know very little about economy, but I know one principle. Investors like predictability. And for the past four decades, I think Oman has been very predictable in that
I think
sense.
leading to that, sorry Khalid, maybe I would take from his question is, would your program be impacted by this dip? I think that would be the only concern would be, because you have a very aspiring program, you have a lot of interface with others, and the worry would be if this dip might kill some of those programs, which is going to infect you on the longer term.
Well, I hope you won't take this answer. You won't hold this answer against me. But for anyone, you ask anyone in the enterprise development sphere, and they will tell you. Actually, they will not tell you. We love global economic crisis because SMEs thrive at times of economic crisis, and it is for a very practical reasons. The global supply chain, once there is an economic crisis, they look for more effective, cheaper ways to keep their supply chain going, or what is called sometimes in-country value or local country developments. So you will notice 86, 70s, 50s, 20s in the US were the times where the terms enterprise development and SMEs started being coined, and when they were thriving. Because in times of global economic crisis, the supply chain starts looking for a more effective way to keep the supply chain going, and that is usually by local content development, developing local companies and suppliers. And I've seen this. I have never, for example, in 2007, 2008, where there are 3-4 partners for SME development in Oman, we have now around 56 institutions, public and private, that are related to SME development. Why? Because it has become more urgent to make sure that the global supply chain integrates smaller and medium enterprises. So the crisis is, we hope that we will get over crisis, but after we finish our programs, inshallah.
Sorry to interfere, we have about 5 minutes left, so maybe a couple more questions.
Okay, I think we have there.
I just wanted to ask about the figures you mentioned, the 86% to 58% and people wanting government jobs.
Yeah.
That's over a span of 2 years.
Yes.
How did it drop that fast?
Because of the general efforts that are related to encouraging people towards self-employment. So they started around, Omanis have been encouraged to open businesses forever, with the beginning of Senate program, for example. But we've seen this bear fruit after 5-7 years. So when they started 2007, 2013, it probably dropped from in the region, in the Gulf region, it's around 94, 93%. So it dropped to 86% in 2014, and this is a survey by the National Youth Commission. It dropped to 58%, and we really think it's because of the cultural activities, media, and schools and universities. But I still think 58% people wanting government jobs is still high.
Maybe also due to the government incentives, because there were like an option given to those who work, they can have a salary after quitting their job of 1 year. So that gives them a push to go for.
Yes,
yeah.
This is also one of the reasons. I like to think that this improvement is because of Riyada.